let's go on. As we were saying, what can you tell me about aimlessness?
Sorry, about what?
Aimlessness. I'm going to share the screen again, right? Because I was sharing it and oops, here. There we are. Yes, what about aimlessness? What do you think? What is that? I think it is highly or easily perceived and very common in adolescents nowadays to be aimlessness. And what is that? What do they say? No, ni ganas. They drop out the sports that they have been doing or the disciplines they have been pursuing for a long time. Generally, when they stop these type of activities that in a way were like a part of their lives, and so all of a sudden they just give up. And that happens during adolescence, right? It's a typical, let's say, behavior of adolescents. And they cannot sustain routines, right? Because they really feel there's nothing for them to, out there for them to do that interests them. Now, much depends on the family that you have. If your family is not going to try to, in a way, not control, but show you that you should, let's say, think of at least short-term objectives, the good things about having a plan, right? About, let's say, fulfilling things on your own, achieving goals and all that. If you don't have a family, right, that fosters this, let's say, behavior about order, organization, and goals, right? This aimlessness will end up being a way of living in the future when they are adults. So they, in a way, they will remain being children because they will depend on older, let's say, figures such as older siblings or their own parents. And we have these children that are 30 and they still live with their parents. That is one. One example, right? I mean, when they have what, I don't know if you have heard about the generation of the ni estudian ni trabajan. Well, it has to do with this. That is a clear example of aimlessness, right? In most of the cases. Listen, I'm generalizing, right? Of course, there are special cases that have to do with different, let's say, aspects that, or let's say, situations that are different at home. I'm not saying that all of them is because they are lazy or they have not been able to find a place in the world, not even in their homes, right? There are many other reasons, of course. It's just a way of generalizing what happens nowadays in society. Now, what about the young adult? So before I move forward, so talking about adolescents, it's good to seek for roles to make them develop empathy. I mean, focus on that, empathy. Do activities, give them tasks where they have to be somebody else, place themselves in other shoes. Make them analyze what implies to be a firefighter. I mean, what are the advantages and disadvantages of living in the countryside? For them to start, in a way, looking the world from different points of view, not only theirs, right? Always ask for their opinion. It is a very good strategy to make them feel that they have some kind of power in the classroom, to give them options, for example. Well, what do you want to do next class? Shall we talk about the novel that we are reading? Shall we do some activities to, let's say, revise the, I don't know, the simple past, or talking about experiences? It's a good idea to give them options so that they can vote or put their hands up, or from time to time ask them about their let's say interests, or what they find difficult or not, or if they have suggestions, and then pick up a couple of suggestions and, let's say, make them a plan in your lesson. That is to say, if they have suggested that they wanted to do, let's say, to play a game about, I don't know, whatever that they have, they know, well, I mean, try to incorporate and show that you really take their voices seriously. And that is empowering them, and in a way is, let's say, releasing this idea, this stress of not having a place in the world. And you become a positive role model, right? I don't know, do you have any other question about adolescence? Or any contribution you want to make?
I think that another trouble that they go through is deciding what to study next, mainly here in Argentina.
Yes, that has to do with aimlessness and role confusion. And perhaps because of they didn't get, let's say, they didn't have the opportunity to see a lot about the world, right, in terms of variety and possibilities.
Yes.
Or sometimes you have a very strong family figure that imposes you to do something that you are not really convinced. It's something that we cannot deny. There are some families that are very close, and if in the family the parents were lawyers or engineers and all that, they want clones. They say one of the worst things that you can do to a child is to give him or her the same name you have. Have you heard about that? I mean, they say that you are, in a way, condemning them. There is a message that they have to be you. I mean, this, let's say, I have heard this when they speak, these people that specialize in neuro-linguistic programming, that they say that our ancestors, right, and the people, I mean, our ancestors condition us, and that sometimes we repeat, not because of what Freud said, it's because we have been conditioned by our families to repeat patterns. That is part of the DNA that is hidden in human culture, right? That's why they study, but this is humanism. It's another branch. It's definitely not social interactionism. But it doesn't have scientific rigor. Did you know that? Okay. Well, in fact, I wonder if the human sciences have this, can go through the test of let's say, Popper. It's very difficult to say, right? Because, I mean, if you deny individualities in human sciences, you are lost. We tend to make generalizations to be able to make decisions, right? In terms of what to teach. I mean, it's not that you have to think about a child that by the age of 7, he or she can use a hand well enough to be able to write. But that's a generalization. That doesn't mean that there are children who are 4 and can do it, or there are children that only can do it and learn to do it well when they are 8 or 9, right? But we need notions that are general, let's say, that are based on statistics. We need these generalizations in order to organize ourselves, because school should be organized somehow and needs this kind of clues or indications that may exclude people who are earlier learners and those who are not so, let's say, fast at, let's say, movements, but perhaps their minds are faster. Right? I mean, we cannot ignore that these generalizations will not always include the rest, but we cannot do away with them. Otherwise, how can we plan a school that is going to teach every child as an individual? You need how many schools? Have you heard about the schools of Montessori? Well, they have this kind of outlook on education that every child is different and should not be imposed a curriculum, that is to say, a syllabus. That the syllabus will create itself according to the students' interests and needs of the group, and the groups should not be larger than 10 or 12 students. I mean, there are schools like that, but what happened? They have not been successful. Why? Because can the state run so many schools? It's impossible. Not even in comenius times. Okay? I mean, we have to be practical. There are a lot of people in the world. So we need to create conditions, the best conditions to learning, right? Based on the number of students, on the population that we have. Right? Okay, well, what about the young adult? You're there. Do you think that there is role confusion in you? Fanatism? What can you say about that? Okay, now we are going to talk about yourselves, right?
I believe that we are more critic than we were when we were adolescents. So that's the main difference, that we are able to criticize or to be critic with different topics.
In different topics, that is to say, this critical thinking in a way is displaced upon not only the adults, because you are already an adult, but on many aspects of this world and this culture that we have, and even upon yourself. And I would say it's where you become harsher. You are more critical to yourself than you are to your parents. Okay? In fact, if there is role confusion, it doesn't have to do with finding your own place in the world. It's finding yourself at ease with what you want and what you can do. I don't know. Do you think it is like that?
Yes, 100%.
Perhaps, I mean, this feeling of I'm never satisfied. I mean, I'm never satisfied with what I have done, or what a pity that I couldn't do more. I want to do it better. Give me another go, right? I mean, I'm thinking about people who are engaged in, let's say, studying. But that might be taken into the labor field. They change jobs right? Because they feel they are not doing well, they want something better and all that. Now, when it becomes, you can never be stable in a job, I don't know, it may be difficult then to get another one, especially in a country where unemployment is big, it's a big deal, right? I mean, if you do that in Norway, you can change jobs as many times as you want in a year because you are likely to find another one. But do that in Argentina and you're going to need to be on the dole later, okay? But what about this attaining intimacy? Can you explain to me what this concept is?
I think that the author refers to the feeling of having feelings for another person and to establish like a deeper kind of relationship, not only with the partner but with your friends.
That's it. It's like you sort of find like a kind of code, right? And this sense of belonging with, it could be friends or it could be peers that you are studying the same or you are interested in the same, let's say, subjects or matters. So that may be at job level, right? Yes, work level, or let's say university or college level. Even you develop a kind of code that has to do with language and let's say and symbols, and you can communicate in a different way with these people. So this degree of intimacy does not only cover your immediate family and the person you love, but also your friends and colleagues or peers. And you tend to form strong relationships during that time because you become more mature. But the biggest problem could be that if you are not, let's say, open enough, right? Then, for example, if you cannot, let's say, accept that there are others who are different from you, then you fall into isolation. But that I think is a problem that has not been, let's say, well solved in previous stages. I guess when you were at school age, when you have to cope with the world. They say that the school is a place where you socialize and learn the cruelest things the world has to offer, because at school you are on your own. I mean, parents leave you there and you are to stand up for yourself. And that's the best thing that can happen to you. You need to let go the hands of your parents. You have to stand up, to stand alone. Because you learn by doing this, I mean, little or minor rehearsals, then you can do it in the future. To speak up your word, right? To defend yourself when it is needed. To learn that sometimes there will be unfair situations, and sometimes you have to conform too. We have to learn to conform. I'm not saying that we need to be submissive, right? But there are instances when it is, I mean, not worthwhile, let's say, wearing yourself out, right, in a fight that will not take you anywhere. And you learn that at school. I mean, it's the best place. So that's why we need it to be back, because otherwise everything is, I mean, all this social element and the conflicts that arise on a daily basis at school, inside the classroom and outside the classroom, right, are not happening. They are on a different scenario, right? Well, what about middle age? stagnation? Can you explain to me what it is? Now, why is it that we are covering this stage? It's because, I mean, it's important. You may have other learners. What is stagnation? Any idea?
I think it's, yes, I think it's referred to the feeling of being stuck,
It is.
not progressing.
It's like you are there, but you are not, you cannot feel there's some progress being obtained or a kind of change. And that's why we think of this midlife crisis, and you want to, sometimes adults take or make drastic decisions in terms of their lives, right? They break with their routines and they start a new life because of this, right? Because they realize that what they have been doing was not what they really felt it was meant to be for them, right? And stagnation has to do with, well, is it that I am, let's say, not generating new things? Can I do something? Can I prove myself that I can still run 20 kilometers? Okay, and they start running and they look like teenagers. They want to prove themselves like they're still young. It has to do with stagnation. I mean, taking it to a very banal, right, aspect, right? But it has to do with this. I mean, what then when you are in your middle age, right, you start feeling the limits of biology. In terms of your body is not the same, and you cannot do the same things you used to do when you were 20. So this feeling of stagnation may be taken for the good in terms of, let's say, renovating yourself and learning new things and starting new things, or finding a way to resume things that you have left a long time, that you had left long ago or long before. That's another way of feeling alive again. Mm-hmm. And then old age, or the old adult, los adultos mayores, as they call them with the pandemic. What is the problem? The problem is generally with them, some of them need to feel that they are still, let's say, in command of their lives and they can be of good help. So many people, once they retire, they start doing a lot of work that is connected to social wealth, right? That is to say, they engage on charity groups, right? Counseling for young people, and many aspects that have this element of social function. Mm-hmm. Well, and that is out of what? Of this feeling of integrity. That in a way releases this despair of believing that you were towards the end.
Yeah.
That the tunnel is close. It's closer and closer and closer. Right? Now, accepting in a way that, well, your life it has not come to an end, but it's closer, right, to death than you were when you were in your 20s. If we think about, I mean, let's say life expectancy in general, right? Well, acceptance of that is not so easy. Now you cannot think about that, right? But it is an important issue to be able to face this stage of life with, let's say, happiness in your soul, right? and feeling that you can still help your children that are adults perhaps, or the people that you love, or people in general. Not necessarily should it be a member of a family. Or perhaps engaging in, let's say, activities that give pleasure to yourself. I mean, no longer thinking about others as a priority. Many adults have had as a priority their children or the immediate family before them. And now, when they are in this old adulthood, right, they come first. Okay, that's another way of, let's say, working it out. And that's why, I mean, we have to be aware of these feelings, because you may have students that decide to study a second language or to resume language learning, right? Because of different interests. Self-fulfillment, why not? Interest in the culture, or why not for traveling purposes? Okay, right? Well, any questions? No? I liked, I mean, these humanistic theories, because in a way they give us a picture of what our learners go through, right? Perhaps they give us an insight on this. And thinking about Maslow, we may concentrate not on stages, but on levels. But still, we have this kind of path, right, that we have to go through in order to have access to the other. You see that the dynamics is the same? It's perceived as the same. Well, now, Maslow develops this, let's say, hierarchy of needs that is divided into two, let's say, basic needs and, do you remember?
Deficiency.
And deficiency are basic needs.
And being or growth.
And the being needs. Okay. And there was much discrepancy in terms of this, because in a way Maslow thought that in order to develop or to move further up in the pyramid, what happened? You needed to have the basic needs, that includes some cognitive needs, fulfilled in order to, let's say, attain the others. And that was, let's say, questioned because, well, in fact, they gave you the example of the Holocaust, okay? That many children were deprived of their basic needs, including shelter, safety, right? And in spite of this, they could, in a way, move onto other stages and develop further up in the pyramid, right? So later, Maslow, in a way, spoke about this, and he said that that argument was right, and that in fact, the basic needs, in a way, will enable you to develop the being needs, let's say, with more ease. Okay, but it's not that you won't be able to fulfill yourself towards a higher level if your basic needs are not met. In a way, he acknowledged the criticism, right? But what it says there in the book, that we should think about the needs, thinking about motivation, right? Well, in fact, I don't know whether you can pose it as if it is a continuum, because that is not what Maslow proposed. Because if you modify it, right, well, you may regard it that way. That doesn't mean that Maslow has changed his, let's say, hierarchy of needs theory, right? Principle, in fact. Okay? Well, I want to show you, I found on Google one of the pyramids that I like them. I like this one better rather than the others. You've got physiological at the bottom that has to do with breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, and excretion. Do you know what is homeostasis? It is keeping balance. I mean, that is to say, when your body and your mind is in balance because you are safe. You are in harmony with the place where you are. When your metabolism is working well too, when you are not ill. Okay, right? It could be biological and or psychological or both. Sometimes they say that homeostasis, in fact, is attained when you are balanced psychologically and physiologically. Okay? Then safety, security, body, employment, resources, morality, the family, health, and property. Right? Then you have further up, right? You develop what? Friendship, family, sexual intimacy. Think about this, because you're familiar with these terms, aren't you? Esteem, self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others. You are respected by others. And self-actualization, morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, lack of prejudice, acceptance of facts. Does it ring any bell? Would you say that this coincides with Erikson's stages?
Yes.
Somehow. Right? Perhaps especially the physiological ones, for the first two stages or not. But I mean, we cannot say that, I mean, security and body and family are not part of the first stages too. But they are feelings, right? They are feelings, they are conditions, right? Situations that in a way will be absolutely necessary for you to survive. So that's why they are deficiency needs. In the deficiency needs, you really have, let's say, ideas or concepts that need to be met, at least some of them. Because without food, you're going to die. So there will be no self-actualization, right? So that is to say, they are basic because of this, but you need in the future, I mean, to love yourself, right? To be able to provide, let's say, food and shelter or a home for yourself when you're an adult. You see, it's not that they coincide only with the stages of development. Then they occur again in a more complex way. You become more responsible, let's say. Okay, but these ideas are repeated in a way. For example, if we think about self-esteem, who do you think, what stage in Erikson's principle, epigenetic principle, you think of?
Adolescence.
Adolescence. Right? But in fact, when we talked about the schoolers, right, the early schoolers, right, we also talk about self-esteem, that we need to make them feel, right, they can do it. Right? That they are, let's say, accepted by their peers, and there is a sense of achievement in them. So that contributes to developing self-esteem for self-sufficiency in the future. Perhaps if you think about self-esteem for a youngster, right, you think about self-esteem and self-sufficiency. But self-esteem for, let's say, a child that is 7, 8, or 9 is just self-esteem because he is dependent on his parents yet. Okay? Right? Now, what about sexual intimacy? Is it just for adolescents and adults or young adults? ESI is for the child, right? All along, right? And now we're teaching that at schools, okay? Now in different degrees, not thinking about, I mean, you cannot think of a toddler attaining sexual intimacy in terms that he's going to engage in sexual activities. But it has to do with being conscious and aware of his body and that it belongs to him or her, that it must be respected and so on, all right? Do you understand? But it's part of sexual intimacy too. So, and it's part of love and belonging, all right? Well, I would like you to think about all these, right? If you have any questions, we'll go on with social interactionism, right? Next class, we are going to finish social interactionism, and then we're going to talk about the way we are going to pair up, because I have prepared 2 tasks based on chapter 2. Once we have concluded, and I would like you to work in pairs, right? Okay, that's why I want the pairs. Don't despair if you don't have a pair, right? We'll work it out on Wednesday, okay? Right? Well, students, I'll see you on Wednesday, right? Bye-bye.
All right.
Okay, see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.